Let's do this. Welcome to Hickam's Dictum. I'm Ben. This is Hamza Khan.
Hey.
And today we're talking leadership versus management. Now, Hamza is a guy I really admire. I checked out one of his YouTube videos. He gave a great TED Talk on leadership versus management. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you go check it out.
If you want to do your best work, if you want your team to do their best work, you have to bring out the best in yourself. To bring out the best in your team, you have to bring out the best in yourself. I don't stand behind my team and say, go. I stand in front of them and say, let's go.
It's a really great TED Talk. It was awesome. I loved it. He touched on some really interesting principles on management. And I figured, you know what? Rather than wonder about what he was talking about and ponder on questions of my own, why don't I just talk to the man himself? Okay,
Here we are.
Pleasure to have you here at Dictum, man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice and cozy. We're like Fat Joe and I guess in Cook Division, man. I'm enjoying this.
Thanks, man. So before we get into the heavy stuff, the leadership management, I know you're a hip hop head. I know you love hip hop.
You've done your research.
I have, man. So who are your top 5 rappers of all time?
Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot like that, eh?
Top 5.
I'll give
or
you
top
my
3.
Well, that's gonna be tough. Let me do top 5, and then can we trade? Can I hear your top 5?
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with 5 that have imprinted themselves upon me emotionally.
Okay.
So people that I associate with particular moments in my life and stages in my life growing up. So I'm going to go with the first hip hop act that I ever saw growing up,
Okay.
which is Dark Man X, DMX.
Wow.
So DMX is number 1. I'm
Okay.
glad that he's out. I'm glad that he's healthy. I'm glad that he's clean with his family now.
Okay.
Shout out to DMX.
All right.
Next, I'm going to go with 50 Cent. Because 50 Cent practically raised me through my adolescent years.
Wow.
Specifically, I was very much inspired by his work ethic and his determination and his hustle, which really inspired a lot of my own work ethic as well. So DMX, 50 Cent, I'm Canadian from Toronto, so I have to go with Drake.
Okay.
Then, because I'm a creative and I really identified with what he did, even though right now he's going through a particularly difficult time, especially on Twitter, I'm going to have to go with Kanye.
Okay.
And last but not least, Jay-Z.
Wow.
Jay-Z, because I think he is now extending the runway of what's possible for the rest of us.
So what your criteria for rappers is the whole package?
I think so. I think for the rappers, I treat them kind of like I treat rap in many ways. I enjoy the audible aspect of it. I love listening to rap. I love listening to hip hop. But I'm more fascinated with the business of it. I'm more fascinated with all the drama and the theatrics and the WWE wrestling nature of it.
Okay.
The competition, the B-roll, the interviews, and all that. And so I love I love the meta narrative around hip hop.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. So you asked me my
your
top
5. It's gonna be way better than mine, man. I just want some basic choices. Man.
So I'm more into the lyrical aspect. of hip hop. If we're going with the full package, I'm gonna go with LL Cool J, probably number 1 because of his longevity. Probably Jay-Z number 2.
Okay.
Again for longevity and how he's managed to stay in the game from a business perspective. I'll throw Biggie in there.
Yeah.
Number 3. Pac number 4, and Nas number 5.
Ooh, interesting.
So that's overall package. If we're talking just straight lyrical ability, which is what I like to look at, I'll probably go with Big Pun.
Yes.
Number 1.
Okay.
I'll probably do Big L, number 2. Biggie, number 3.
Yeah, both lists, eh?
Number 4 is tough.
Maybe Nas in there?
Nas is a storyteller. He wasn't really a lyricist. Oh, he's a good lyricist. Right. But I put Nas and Pac in the same conversation. They're more storytellers. Right?
Okay.
They're excellent storytellers. I'm not talking about just strict wordplay, like catchy punchlines, that kind of stuff. Eminem.
Yeah.
Number 4. And number 5, it's a toss-up between, even though Cannabis took a beating in that, I don't know if you saw that freestyle.
I did.
In the freestyle battle he did with, what was it, Disaster or whatever?
That was terrible.
Yeah. Arsenal, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Even though he took a beating there, I'll probably go Cannabis at number 5, just on his body of work.
Of course.
I think he's one of the most underrated writers in hip hop that we've seen. And I know he gets a little weird sometimes, but there's so many good lyricists out there, man. Big Daddy Kane was a good lyricist.
I like that, and we can't let that one moment in Cannabis's career overshadow the body work. Can I share my lyricist?
Okay,
that's cool.
Yeah, let's do that.
Some overlap over there, so I would say Eminem.
Okay.
just as a student of English literature, looking at just, printing out, sometimes I remember printing out his lyrics and just studying the rhyme schemes and studying the alliteration and all these other components of it. I just thought it was absolutely fascinating. I still am very impressed to this day. So I would say Eminem, Big Pun, Immortal Technique.
Oh, how did I forget about him?
Right?
Oh man, that's a good one.
Killer Mike.
Okay. I'll do
that. I'm going to save that last spot because I loved what he did with Damian Marley. That album in particular, I'm going to go with Nas. Distant Cousins? Distant Relatives, I think?
That was a solid one.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. How did I forget about Immortal Technique? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of fallen off the map a bit, eh?
There's so many good rappers, man. Mos Def. Mos Def, Talib Kweli. Even AZ, when AZ was
for sure
with Nas. He was
sometimes Kendrick, sometimes J. Cole, too.
I'm not really big on... I like Kendrick Lamar as an artist. I really do. I think he's different. Lyrically, I would not put him in my top... Not even my top 10. But I like his style.
Right. In terms of like the complexity of what he's strung together, it's nowhere near what Eminem can do.
Yeah.
But I think he's talking about things and making you think about things with imagery that I don't think we've been exposed to.
I agree with that.
In a long time.
100%.
Yeah.
Dope, man. I like that.
Great question, man. What a way to start an interview.
Yeah, I know, right? So now to the fun stuff.
Where do we go from here?
So we're talking leadership.
Yes.
You gave this dope talk, TED talk, and you had this revolutionary approach. Going against the traditional model. I don't want to. Not fitting into a box. That kind of theme was throughout your conversation. What made you so passionate about leadership in the first place? What made you get into leadership? Why is that subject such a big thing for you?
Yeah, throughout my life, I would say I've experienced the full spectrum, or as full as I could have experienced, of leadership styles. Okay. Whether it was being barked at in the Canadian Armed Forces, or running my own completely utopian laissez-faire agency, walking into my office, not seeing a single soul over there, yet work was happening at the highest level. And everything in between. I feel like I've rehearsed multiple scenarios and run up against multiple bosses and leaders who have given me a lot to reflect on, a lot to chew on. And so where that passion came from, I think, came from being young and having a team of my own and building this team and seeing the fruits of the labor paying off in terms of performance, in terms of, we were winning all kinds of awards. We were really creating a blueprint for that kind of work, that kind of team configuration, which then carried on into my role as a founder and as a leader for my own agency. So I'm talking about back when I was working in post-secondary. We just did things, and there was a spirit, and there was training and support that came in the way of bosses and mentors that showed me how to be a leader and showed me how to step up and guide people and orient their efforts towards a singular goal. So I've been very fascinated by that. Wow. I'm also a big sports fan too, and so watching what happens in that microcosm happen on the court has been nice to sort of see the parallels between what happens at the highest elite level of athletics, but also what we do in the business world. Man,
if you don't know this guy right here, man, talk about eclectic. Built an app. He owns his own agency. He owns an educational company. So. This guy, he's the man, right?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Just a small correction there. So I owned an agency. I'm no longer part of it. I'm working with a really talented team at Student Life Network that is building the app. Unfortunately, I don't own the app.
Yeah, you're still a boss, man.
I try.
You're still a boss. So in your TED video, you mentioned tomorrow's workplace.
But we're built for tomorrow's workplace. Because we grew up in an increasingly flat and connected world, we're that much more resourceful, innovative, entrepreneurial, nimble, dexterous, agile. I've got buzzwords for days, y'all. How we work and why we work is fundamentally out of sync with the expectations of the traditional workplace.
Right. So for those of us who haven't seen your video, what does tomorrow's workplace mean?
Yeah, tomorrow's workplace, I think, will resemble the workplace of yesterday that I created when I was with my agency, Splash Effect, in that it will be remote, it will be decentralized, it will have integrated technologies that allow people to collaborate and communicate no matter where they are in the world. It will respect where people want to work, how people want to work, and it's one that will be very flat. There's not going to be a lot of leadership layers to it. There's not going to be a lot of hierarchy to it. And it's one that's going to move very quick. It's going to be agile. It's going to be nimble. It's going to be what I imagine a freelance worker experiences on a day-to-day, but extrapolate it out to accommodate multiple people. And I think that, here in New York, a good example of a place where you can be that type of worker and hop around, for example, from WeWork building to WeWork building, and not actually have the overhead of an office space that's clunky, that's bloated, that people don't even want to be at half the time. I think that's very much the future of work.
Wow. That's very interesting. I like how you threw the WeWork.
Shout out to WeWork.
Shout out to WeWork.
Check WeWork.
Shout out to WeWork. Very interesting. Okay. So you mentioned also in your TED video, you also mentioned Peter Drucker, one of the top management thinkers of our time. I think I read somewhere he was a mentor to, I think, Jack Welch or someone like that. Very, very astute guy. He a pioneer in management thinking and theory. And he coined the phrase knowledge workers, which are people, usually specialists, who add value to their organizations through thinking, right? They research ideas, they look for new concepts, new ways of doing things. And he believed that in organizations should make investing in them a top priority, right? So in your opinion, what kind of environment best facilitates the growth and nurturing of knowledge workers?
Really good question. In my experience, I've seen the types of environments that are conducive to knowledge workers. I've seen them to be in the following categories. They've been education to a certain extent, at least on the administration side, marketing, communications, technology, basically any industry, any vocation that requires you to work with and through a computing device, whether it's a mobile device like a cell phone or a tablet or a desktop or a laptop. Anytime where you have to be within a cubicle, do some solo work, siloed work that requires interfacing with technology, I think all of those jobs, traditional knowledge jobs, can be done in the flexible work environments that I described earlier.
Gotcha. Wow.
Those are the most conducive to knowledge workers.
So knowledge workers are best, to summarize what you just said, are best suited, or the best environment for them is a flexible environment where they're given space and autonomy to come up with their original pieces of thought and ideation that can benefit the organization.
Yeah, and I like that you supplemented my answer, because I think, now thinking back very quickly to the answer that I just gave, I only described the physical attributes primarily of the organization, but you described the, at least the philosophical and the, like the style of work that needs to be done. So I'm glad that between the two of us, we have a more rounded answer there.
It's because we're awesome, man.
Hey.
That's what we do.
Jay-Z and Kanye, man. There you go.
Okay, man. Okay, so you brought up very interesting, towards the latter half of your TED Talk, you talked about Douglas McGregor and
Theory X, Theory Y.
Theory X, Theory Y.
And so it behooves managers of the next generation to develop a focus on management with a distinctly Theory Y approach. In order to understand and appreciate Theory Y, you first have to understand and appreciate Theory X.
And for those of you who don't know, these are two management principles or theories on how managers see their workforce, right? So Theory X is more of the foreman with the whip, more rigid systems, more rules.
Assumes the employee is lazy.
It assumes, and that's a very strong point, right? These are all assumptions, right? So it assumes the employee is lazy or not motivated, and it's either harsh rewards or good rewards or harsh punishments, and so forth, versus Theory Y, which is more of a partnership between the employer and the employee, more of a flat system, more, hey, well, let's take your ideas and build. There are pros and cons to each approach. So Theory X might be best suited for industries or an environment that requires high productivity. So I'll give you an example. I used to, years ago, before I got into the tech analytics space, I've had jobs where I worked in a factory and a warehouse, right? I actually used to work for UPS in a warehouse in Secaucus, and my job was from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., or whatever my hours were, to literally load cargo into a huge trailer. Very physically demanding work, no breaks, just, And I had a foreman who stood behind me, get to work, move faster, that kind of thing. very grueling work, getting yelled at constantly. You know, Ben, are you're making time? He had to load like, I think it was like, what was it, 300 units in a minute or something, some crazy number like that.
Right.
And you have this conveyor belt of all these things flowing down. And so in that system, the theory X, quote unquote, might come into play.
Sure.
Right? Because there are really no knowledge workers in that space.
Yeah.
Everyone there is just I don't want to
for lack of a better
yeah, for lack of a better, they're respectable, able-bodied people, but their sole purpose is physical, loading stuff in there, versus what I do now, where I sit in a comfortable office with white-collar workers who chit-chat and do all that kind of stuff and play office politics and all that stuff, water cooler chats. But there's also a lot of research and stuff into coming up with ideas to benefit the business, and even in that system, if you're in a big corporation, right, where your role is, I have XYZ I do, and I have to do, well, let's simple example. If I'm a data entry person, I have to enter this amount of data and that's it. And my manager's like, have you done this many spreadsheets? And that's it. My question is, because I know you're a theory Y guy, right? Do you think that there should be, do you think there's a one size fits all for every kind of business? Do you think, and you raised a good point, right? When we first started talking, you said that the knowledge workers and that kind of thing fits into the new generation of work style, which is more flat, more mobile, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
So based on everything I just said, do you think there's a one size fits all with the theories? Do you think they're even practical for every single workspace? And so forth. What are your objective thoughts on everything I just said?
Yeah, wow. Great. That's a great question. And again, we have to keep in mind that they're both theories at the end of the day, and they're both ways of looking at employees, ways of looking at managerial responsibilities and leadership responsibilities with a very distinct lens. Mm-hmm. But of course, the world has evolved, the world continues to evolve, and so our understanding of these theories should also evolve in tandem. Mm-hmm. I'll give you one quick example of a time where I totally botched my Theory Y approach. So I remember running a small creative agency within an educational institution, and I started all the employees with a Theory Y approach. Okay. It turned out very quickly that some of them actually weren't as self-actualized and self-motivated as I thought, and so what I did is I disabled them in the process. They became very lazy, checked out, and again, I take full ownership of that. There's no such thing, I believe, as bad teams. There's only bad leaders, and so I was a bad leader in that case. What I learned that I should have done later is approach the beginning of that relationship with a Theory X framework, which is assume that you have to create those braces, those constraints, and manage people, and then gradually relinquish, and then allow them to flourish in the way that Theory Y can. So it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all approach for everyone. I think start everyone at the same place, and then as they evolve, as you document the process, as you learn more about them, then you can adjust. But I think starting with an X mentality and then quickly transitioning into Y is the way to go. That's how I approach my teams now.
Excellent. So we've talked a lot about organizational processes. We've explored some of the common management theories and out there, Theory X versus Theory Y. We've defined what they are. We've established that there's no one size fits all. You know, the world is constantly changing, and we have to change with it. So now let's get into just higher level. What is the difference between a leader and a manager? So can you answer that in your opinion?
At the time of this recording, we're at the eve of the 2019 All-Star Game. It's Team Giannis versus Team LeBron. Okay. It's not Team Giannis versus Team Westbrook, and I think there's a really good reason for that. I would say that Westbrook scared away some of the best players in the league. He scared away Harden. He scared away Durant. I mean, imagine if they all stayed together. It would have been a fantastic team, but people have said, they've gone on record to say that Westbrook is a horrible person to play with. He's very demanding, very moody, very aggressive, belittles you. He's very much a driver of performance that's unsustainable. And so that's why you see him retreat into himself and play very selfish iso ball all the time. Now, on paper, he's putting up better numbers than LeBron, but at the end of the day, LeBron has created better players on his teams, people who are now leading their own teams. He inspires people to greatness. He models good behavior on and off the court as well. He's a thorough gentleman. Whether he's giving an interview about an ex-teammate that might have scorned him or someone who's left his team even, he has nothing but the highest of remarks in regards to them. So with that being said,
people want to work with, they want to play with, they want to play for LeBron, not the other way around. And so what LeBron does is he embodies this philosophy of leaders create other leaders, and Westbrook doesn't do that.
Wow. And you gave some examples. You said Westbrook is scared of people. He plays iso ball, and the word out there is that he's a bit of a selfish player.
Right, and you see him try to manage too. Like, you see him sometimes override what the coach is talking about, and you see him talk to players in a way that's very reminiscent of times that I've been micromanaged.
Wow. So if you translate that to the workplace or workforce, that would be, for example, a manager who doesn't share information, who keeps information to his or herself, who doesn't, who might talk down to subordinates or have my way or the highway approach from a sports world to the corporate or whatever world. Very interesting.
Creates unnecessary animosity and resentment.
Right, right. I agree with you on that. I was going to say, I was going to add my experience. I went to, like you have a military background. I went to military academy, almost the same thing. And we were taught leadership principles right from the, young teens all the way to late teens. And I remember when I was in military academy, right from when you start, based on your demeanor, your predisposition, you can be given charge of a squad. So when I started military academy, I think I was like 14 or maybe 15, I had 8 of the kids I was responsible for. I had to, watch when they made their beds, they shined their shoes. This is every single day, they kept good behavior. And if you can keep that, manage that well, you get promoted, right? So with the whole leadership versus management thing, in the structure of the barracks, we had the company, right? And there were 4 companies. And think of a company as, a company is a group of kids, but in the world, a company is a company. So within the company, you had your squads. Each squad had a squad leader. I was a squad leader. And then you had a platoon sergeant who managed the squads. And then you had the platoon leader who ran the platoon. And then you had a company commander who ran that company, right? So the company commander was the person who was an officer, right? Who set the tone of, the vision, to your point, to the LeBron Westbrook thing, the vision of where we're going to go, how he wants the company to perform next semester whether it's with sports, timeliness, cleanliness, parade, whatever the thing is. He set the vision. And the platoon sergeant who ran the individual squads did the actual management of each role, each squad. Have you done your stuff yet? Have you done this? Let's move forward, let's meet at this time to go over the deliverables for this guy. So I like what you said about the LeBron Westbrook thing. The company commander sets the vision of where we're going to go, and the platoon sergeant, who's the manager, manages the processes and tasks.
And they're not mutually exclusive. Like, you can see managerial elements to what LeBron does, and you can see sometimes leadership qualities that Westbrook exhibits, albeit in glimpses. I would say that a leader, a pure leader, and a pure manager don't actually exist. I can't think of any example in which, a manager is only a manager and doesn't have any leadership qualities, and when you have a leader that doesn't have any management qualities. I think a healthy blend is necessary, but I think where possible, at all times, people should strive to embody leadership. Even if you don't have leadership responsibilities in the organization, you can still exhibit personal leadership. Wow.
Excellent, man. Wow, Hamza, man, this has been dope, man. This has been a great conversation. I think you're a really cool guy, man.
Likewise, man.
It's been really cool getting to know you, man. Any final thoughts on leadership or management for our fine friends on Hickam's Dictum?
Future-proof yourself. Invest right now in the qualities that you're going to need to outlast the coming stress, the coming changes. And make no mistake about it, friends, they are coming. They're coming in hot and heavy. The world's only going to get more competitive, more alienating, more pressurized. Technology is going to play a bigger role in changing the way that we live, work, think, and play. It's going to become lonely. The economy is still going to hurt, and probably hurt more than it is right now. And so you're not going to feel like you're enough. You're going to feel like you're not perfect enough, you're not efficient enough, you're not progressive, satisfied, innovative enough, and that's probably going to bring out the worst in you. But I think that's an opportunity for you to step up and be the best leader that you can be. And the way that you can become the best leader that you can be is invest right now in the qualities and the attributes that you're going to need in the future. You're going to need compassion, empathy, emotional intelligence, resilience, mindfulness, creativity. Attunement. There's a whole host of soft skills that I think are going to be essential to the leadership of tomorrow, that people should strive to learn those values and truly manifest them in all dimensions of their life.
Wow, man, that's dope. See that? How can you beat that, man? That's just awesome, man. Man, this has been awesome, man. I really enjoyed it, man. I think even this conversation, black guy talking to an Indian guy about tech and leadership, just shows the world. It just shows where we are in the world today. You know what I'm saying? I saw him in TED. I reached out to him. Not more than a week or a month or something later.
Yeah, here we are.
We're talking New York City. So I think that's just a testament to what he said, that things are changing in the world, right? Only a few years ago, this would not have been possible. And in a split second, we made it happen. You know what I'm saying?
Amazing.
So I think, it's a testament to the need for leadership, to Hamza's point, to be more and more dynamic, more and more thinking outside the box. The world has really changed. You can't have rigid thought processes and think in silos. You have to really think outside the box. That's why I created Hickam's Dictum, because, I look at everything from every angle. That's why I talk to awesome people like Hamza to help build myself up and learn and grow from just really cool people. And I really hope that this conversation provided benefit for you. Again, I'm going to put a link to Hamza's TED Talk below this video, and links to all his other projects, so you can check him out and learn about my cool brother over here. I hope you can subscribe to this channel and hit the subscribe button, and let us know what you think about leadership versus management, okay? Again, I'm Ben, this is Hamza, and this is Hickam's Dictum. Peace.